please, please consider buying $100 of Bitcoin. I am filming this in 2023. It's a beautiful evening outside. I'm enjoying this lovely summer evening in this field here. And my message to you from this place in the world and this place in time is an encouragement for you to buy $100 of Bitcoin. Now, why on earth is that? Am I going to get into a big spiel about Bitcoin, this and that, the other? Well, yes and no. I'm going to avoid, as much as I can, the argument for Bitcoin and just argue why you should just get a little bit. Like just $100, $50, $100, $1,000, whatever is a negligible amount to you that you're okay with losing, you should consider buying Bitcoin. What's the reason for this? Well, the reason for this is that technology changes over time. It advances over time, it gets better over time. And if you're smart and you look back at history and you try to learn from history, you'll quickly hear the phrase that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, one of the things most consistently throughout time people do is they doubt future technology. They doubt its success, they doubt its inevitability, they doubt the implications of this, and people are pessimists. We're pessimistic by nature. We grow up in a certain era, in a certain world with certain technologies, and when we see a new technology challenging that paradigm, we inherently want to dismiss it. We want to avoid it. Perhaps it's because it's inconvenient and it would disrupt our current job. Perhaps just because it's something new to learn and it's not really urgent to learn because the world the way it is now works. So why do we have to learn this new thing? So there's no urgency there. You don't feel the need to do it. So there's a lack of positive incentive to learn about it, and there's perhaps a presence of a negative incentive if it contradicts your job or contradicts your self-interest, it contradicts the companies you invest in, the companies you buy and the monies you use. And so if we look back in history and we learn from history and we understand that humans always consistently, no matter at what point in history you go, have a tendency of not accepting new technologies, you have to ask yourself, Bitcoin has been around for almost 15 years. In 2023, how many new emerging technologies have been around for a decade and a half and resulted in being nothing at all? Not a lot. If Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, let's say you think it is, if it's a Ponzi scheme, how many Ponzi schemes last 15 years have multiple 80%, 90%, and even 93, 94% drawdowns and recover every single time? And how many Ponzi schemes have so many intelligent, smart people behind it? People like myself, people like Michael Saylor, people obviously like the original cypherpunks like Satoshi and Finney and many other people. But if these innovators, if these people are behind this thing and they're so passionate about this thing, those are really the only two scenarios. Either it is a form of a Ponzi scheme and they are all scammers. I am a scammer. Everyone else is lying to you. Or they might be onto something. Decade and a half, maybe you should give it some thought. And so if those are the only two possibilities, you have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm a human being, I'm in this current moment in time, and I know, based on history, that if I don't want to repeat that, I should at least consider the possibility that I'm wrong. I should at least consider the possibility that this thing might have some sort of vitality, might have some sort of use in the future. Now, okay, if we accept that, what should you do about it? Well, I have a few options. You could put in 1,000 hours of work, try to learn about Bitcoin, try to hear all the arguments for it, against it, debate about it in your own mind for hundreds of hours, listen to a bunch of podcasts, read a bunch, but you could put in all that work into learning about Bitcoin. I would encourage you to do that, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to say, you don't have to do that. You don't have to put in 1,000 hours of work. You don't have to put in hundreds of dollars into buying books and going to conferences and doing all these things. You don't have to do all that. All you have to do, all I'm asking you to do, all I'm begging people to do is to just get off zero. Take $100. Don't go down that rabbit hole that you don't have the desire to go down, you don't have the interest to go down, you don't have time to go down. Don't go down that rabbit hole if you don't want to go down it, and instead just get off zero. Take $100, take an afternoon, and buy some Bitcoin, lock it down in proper storage, and once you do that, forget about it, and then go down that rabbit hole once you have the interest, the time, or the capital, or whatever, to go down it. See, most people have these excuses that, oh, I don't have the money. Even if I wanted to learn about Bitcoin, I don't have the money to buy Bitcoin. It's $30,000 or whatever, what is $100 going to do when a whole Bitcoin's $30,000, blah, blah, blah. Like, forget all that. Forget your excuses. Oh, I don't have the time. I don't have the capital. I don't understand it. It's too complicated, blah, 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 blah. Forget all of that and just get off zero, because there is a non-zero chance that you're wrong. And there's also a non-zero chance I'm wrong. So don't go in. Don't take unnecessary risk in something that you don't understand. But because it's something you don't understand and you want to learn a little bit about, just get $100 worth. You know, I hear all the time people say, oh, if I just had bought a single dollar worth of Bitcoin, I would have so much money and so much Bitcoin. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can be that kind of shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of person, and like, oh yeah, I could have bought $1 Bitcoin, made 100 times all my money, made $100 just from. It's like, okay, well then buy $100 worth today. $100 still is not that much money. It's still not that much. And granted, that's a little bit for my American bias here. Obviously, there are, of the 5 billion adults in the world, there's 2 billion adults or so that $100 is a lot of money to them. It's weeks, if not months, if not an entire year's worth of savings for them. But if you're watching this, and you are probably in this demographic I'm speaking of here, and you're in that upper 3 billion, let's say 60% of global adults, 3 billion human beings, you could probably afford $100. I'm filming this on an iPhone. If you're watching this, you're probably watching on a smartphone, on a computer. You probably have an internet connection. You probably make enough money in the course of a month, a week, perhaps even in a couple days, that you could save $100. How much money do you spend on sporting events? How much money do you leave on the table from watching YouTube videos, from doing nothing and just scrolling on your social media of choice? How much money are you leaving on the table when, instead of putting all that time into pointless entertainment or trying to learn about Bitcoin before you buy it, it's like, don't spend your time on that. Just find a way to get $100, buy some Bitcoin, and lock it down. Think rationally about this. Why? Because of the 3 billion people that are into this, that could possibly be into this Bitcoin thing and have $100 worth of Bitcoin stashed, most of them don't. And so if they don't, and if this turns out being something that's a really big deal, like the crazy Bitcoin people like me are saying here in 2023, it's like, you might want to do that. Is $100 worth of Bitcoin going to change your life overnight? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it is getting off zero. That's such a big deal. See, there are 21 million Bitcoin. This is what you need to know, okay, of why $100 is important. There's 21 million Bitcoin there will ever be. I won't get into why that is. You don't have to understand why that is. Just take my word for it right now. There's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be. There's roughly 8 billion human beings on the planet. Now, granted, 5 billion of those humans are adults, so they actually have the incomes. And like I said, really only about 3 billion of those 5 billion have any kinds of savings at all. There are billions of people that don't even have property rights, which that's a big deal of Bitcoin helping them out, but that's a story for another time. But point being, let's say 8 billion human beings. Our population will grow, more people will have property rights, there'll be more adults in the future. 8 billion human beings, 21 million Bitcoin. Do the math, that's 230-ish thousand Satoshis per human being. And in case you don't know, Satoshis are like cents. A dollar, cents, Bitcoin, Satoshis. Just think of Satoshis as smaller units of Bitcoin. Now, how much does it cost to buy 250,000 cents? Well, it costs less than $100. It costs less than $100. You can buy 1 million Satoshis for $300. You can buy 1/3 of a million Satoshis for $100. So it's like, okay, let's think about this. This technology is either a complete scam, a complete Ponzi, and it's going to zero, or there is some reasonable probability it's going to have a future. And if that's the case, and you divide it out, simple math, take one number, divide it by another number, okay, I can buy that amount of Bitcoin for $100. And probably you can afford $100. It's like, why won't you do that? I'll tell you why. It's psychology. Most people will not learn about Bitcoin because there are only 2 ways people learn about Bitcoin. It's either from curiosity or from pain, discomfort. Unfortunately, most people are going to learn about Bitcoin from that pain and from that discomfort. As inferior forms of technology, what I call political currency units or political monies, what we call fiat currency, all these terms and jargon you don't have to understand. All those inferior forms of technology will decline as this new superior form of technology displaces it. And so fortunately, again, learning from history, most people will not learn about this new technology until the pain of transacting and operating in the former technology becomes too great. And so it's my encouragement, if you don't have the interest to go all in Bitcoin, don't. If you don't have the comfort to put in X number of dollars of Bitcoin, that's okay. Just take half of that or a third of that or whatever small negligible amount you can justify having, just do it. Don't spend 20 hours watching Bitcoin podcasts, get overwhelmed and confused, not do anything. Just take $100, buy some Bitcoin, lock it down, and if I'm a scammer and if I'm wrong and if I'm promoting a Ponzi scheme and you lose $100, like, okay, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not your life savings. So that's my encouragement for people today. It's easy for us to look back into the past and say, oh, I could have bought a single dollar of Bitcoin when it was 100 times cheaper. My encouragement is like, okay, so what? It changes nothing. Just increase your small amount of $1, $5, and increase it to $100 or $500. Buy some Bitcoin, set it aside, and wait 20 years. Don't sell in 6 months when the price goes down. Don't sell in 18 months when the price goes up 5x. Just wait and hold it until you're willing to put in the time to further understand it. So that, in my opinion, is what you should do if you want to be a thoughtful person for yourself, for your children, and for your future generations beyond your children. Just $100. Please.